Crest rail is looking great, but we still have a little bit more work left to do to it. We've already shaped it and curved it in the front as well as the rear, and then we've also done a curve from the bottom to the top. What remains is cutting mortises for the ebony plugs and sanding and finishing these flat surfaces as well as the curves, and then rounding everything over, as well as cleaning out the handle and rounding that over. And the same goes for the bottom. A little bit of sanding, a little bit of planing maybe, and rounding everything over. So let's get to it. It's time to start marking out the plugs on our Crest rail. Now, I don't know if you can see or not, but I left the center mark here on my mortise, and I'm going to take that and just very lightly transfer it up. The first ebony plug we're going to do is a 1/4 inch in the center here. So it's a 1/4 inch plug, and it also happens to be a 1/4 inch up. So I'm going to take my square here. The plug is a 1/4 inch wide, so that means it's going to be 1/8 inch on both sides here. So I'm going to bring my ruler from my square, bring it over, and mark out 1/8 inch over on the right, and 1/8 inch over on the left. And I'll just bring those lines up. The next two are 5/16 inch, and instead of being a 1/4 inch high, they're 3/8 inch high. And they're also 3/4 inch from the edge here over to the left as well as the right. So I think the first thing we'll do is bring our square over with the ruler and mark where 3/4 inch is on both sides. Now that we've marked out where 3/4 inch is, let's set the square to go up 3/8 inch. And we'll mark that out. And then we can go up from this point here. And now we know where 1/5/16 inch is, where it intersects in this corner here. And we'll do the same on the other side. And we know where this 5/16 inch is on the left. The mortises above the side rails are a little bit easier. Those are a 1/4 inch as well, and they're a 1/4 inch above. So I'm going to take my ruler here, or my square that is, and kind of place it towards the center and strike a line across. I'm going to do that on both sides. And now what I'm going to do is find the center between these two. So this is 1.25 inches long. So the center of an inch is 1/2 inch, and the center of a 1/4 is 1/8. So that means I'm 5/8. So I have to come over 5/8 inch. And then from there, I just have to go over 1/8 inch on each side. And now I can bring those two lines up. And I'll do the same on the right side. My drill has the 5/16 inch drill bit for the square punch in, so I'm going to do the 5/16 first. I have a little spacer here. It's a 1/2 inch thick, and it fits perfectly into my 1/2 inch mortises, and I have it all the way to the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mortise punch here and align this corner here along my lines, bring my square over, and then square it up to the square blade. the blade on the square. And just like before, same process. This is why I have the pad here, because we're going to be pounding against this wood and I want to protect the crest rail. So we're not going to go very deep, just a little bit. I'm going to take my small chisel here and stay away from what would be the walls of the mortise and just remove some material. So I'm just going to come in and try to remove a little bit more waste. Basically what I'm trying to do here is provide a little bit of space for the rest of this material in here to move to. At least that's what I'm telling myself. This time I'm going to take the 1/4 inch chisel. And I just press down, connecting the two sections at the... So now that I've connected all 4 walls, I can pop some of this out. All right, that looks really good. We have nice clean walls all the way around. One 5/16 down, 1 more to go. Okay, I think we're good to go on that one. The other 2 are exactly the same. I've already marked them out, so why don't you go take care of those. I'll take care of mine, and we'll come back and we'll talk about rounding over and flattening everything. I have the crest rail clamped into my vise right now. You'll see that I have the router mat here surrounding the crest rail, and that's just providing a cushion around it, for one, for safety, because I don't want to damage it, and 2, it allows that material to move around the vise and provide some leverage to hold this piece together. It is curved, so it's pushing in more on the inside. So anyways, what I want to do right now is I'm just going to touch these faces right here with my block plane and clean them up a little bit. Okay, cut's a little too heavy. The inside's going to be a little bit harder. You could try to skew your block plane and attack some of it. But you're not going to be able to get much. So instead, what I recommend is you can go straight to a sanding block or a card scraper and then to the sanding block. Some 150 grit paper to start, and then we'll move up to 220. We should be pretty good. We're just going to take the sanding block and just like we did when we made the template, just come here and start working on these a little bit. What's nice about the sanding block is it's curved here in the front, so I can come up the curve and then be flat here. Okay, we'll try to hit this handle part with some 150 as well. It's pretty smooth. I can kind of get the block in here, but I'm hitting stuff the whole time, so you may want to just do this with some loose paper. Now that we've sanded all these surfaces to 150 grit, I do want to go up to 220. Before I go up to 220, I'm going to use the 150 grit sanding block and the folded up 150 grit. I'm going to start rounding over all of these edges here. You want to get a nice round over, both on the top and the bottom, so it feels nice when you're touching the piece itself, as well as inside the handle. And once we round all those over to 150, then I'll come in with some 220 and sand this all by hand, and as well as the flat surfaces as well as the curves. And just like before, I'm going to start rounding over. I'm just trying to get a nice uniform feel all the way around. It's time to do the same thing on the bottom now. Just gonna round everything over, and then after we do that with the 150, we'll come back and smooth everything out with the 220. Now that everything's been sanded to 150, I'm going to come back with some 220 paper and go over the whole thing. Alright, I think the crest rail is done. I've sanded everything to 220, rounded all the edges over from the top to the handle to the bottom. We've got our 3/4 inch plug mortises cut and our 2 5/16 of an inch mortises cut for our plugs. Yeah, nice and smooth. Any scratches from the 150 grit are gone with 220, and this looks great. So I'm going to put this over on a table of our ever-growing pile of finished parts, or almost finished parts. The next item on our list is to create the details on the upper rails and aprons. So I have the upper apron or front apron right here with me, and I have a template that I've used over the years, and it's very simple, just a piece of MDF, and it's got a little groove routed into it, and this groove takes a 3/8 inch diameter collar, and it just floats inside of it. And we're going to use a 1/4 inch core bit here. So we'll need some MDF, a 3/8 inch router bit to get rid of the waste in the MDF to make our template. I'm going to use this little guy here to do the routing on top of the boards, and some double stick tape. But the first thing we're going to do is make this template. I have a 1/4 inch sheet of MDF here, and the reason why I can use a 1/4 inch sheet of MDF is earlier in the video we took this 3/8 inch router collet and we sanded it down so it would work with our 1/4 inch template for the crest rail, and I can use it here too because it is its depth is less than the total thickness of this board. So we have some measurements we need to mark out, and the first of those is 1 inch and 2/8, and this will be the edge of our indent. So I'm going to take a square here and make a line that's 1 2/8 of an inch in. The next line we have to make is 4 6/8 of an inch in. So I'm gonna make another line that's 4 6/8 of an inch in. Okay. So that's going to be the one edge and the other edge. Next, we need to establish some lines on the bottom. The first of those lines will be 7 16 of an inch up. And then from there, I actually want to add, while I'm at it, 3/8 of an inch. So 7 16 plus 3/8 of an inch. And we'll make that line here. And then the next one is 14 16 of an inch. Well, I screwed up. I drew the 14 16 of an inch first. So we actually need to draw 13 16 of an inch. My bad. Okay, that's the 3/8. And that's our new line up here. So this is 14 16, and that one's 13 16. And this one is at 7 16. Okay, so we got to do one more line that's another 6 16 of an inch higher than this, and that's at 1 1/4 inches. So there's our 4 lines. Okay, so those are our 4 lines, and then we need to draw some other points along this distance here that are going to help us draw in our angle. So let me give you those. The outermost distance we'll need to draw is 3 1/8 inches. And then just subtract 2/8 of an inch from that, and that should give you 2 6/8 of an inch. So what we need to do now is mark out our angle here. And the angle basically is connecting these points. So I'm going to take a straight edge here, and I'm going to connect this upper point to the lower point. Now that I connected these 2 points, what I'm going to do is bring my ruler up to that straight line and mark 1 2 3/8 of an inch, 1 2 3/8 of an inch, and then just connect those 2 dots. And that'll give us the space between these 2 areas, which is 3/8 of an inch. What I want to do right now is bring some of these lines over and then down. That one, this one, and then I'm going to bring some of these all the way down. Then I'm going to bring some of these all the way down. So I know I need this outer one. I need the two outside lines. As I run a bit here, I definitely need to stop somewhere around here. And then as I run the bit here, I probably shouldn't be starting in the same spot. I should start a little bit farther over because the bit's going to be round. So why don't we start right here instead. We'll just play it safe. So these are my start and stop marks on the router table. We're at the router table right now, and I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I have a 1/4 inch bit already in here. And I'm going to actually remove some of this waste with the 1/4 inch bit first. Maybe call me overly cautious, but I feel like doing the 1/4 inch bit, removing some of the waste, and then using the 3/8 inch bit after that. It'll be less work on the bit, the 3/8 inch bit. It'll be removing less material at once, and it'll also give me a better understanding of where the bit's going to be entering or not entering for myself. I just feel more comfortable that way. You could do something different, and that's fine. The other thing I did is I extended the lines all the way across, so it'll help me line up my bit with the piece itself. So I'm going to get some safety gear on, and we'll take out some of this first material with the 1/4 inch bit. I'm taking a template and gently laying it down into the bit, moving it across and watching my lines. When I start coming close to my lines, I will pull the template up, reposition for the next cut, and do the exact same thing. Drop the bit just before my line, and then just remove waste all the way across, stopping just before my line. I brought the lines from the top down, and that helps me line up my bit to the lines. So I got my 3/8 inch bit now lined up to where the 3/8 inch cut lines are for the lower part of this jig. So I got that lined up. Now it's time to remove that waste. I routed out the 3/8 inch sections, and everything's looking really good. I got as close as I dared to these angled lines here. And now I'm just going to grab some chisels and the mallet and just get rid of this waste by hand. Once I've removed the waste, I'm going to take my 3/8 inch collar here and see how we do. Okay, we're a little tight. I can start by removing some waste here. Let's see how that feels on the angle. Much better. These, they're a little tight. In order to loosen these up a little bit, I'm going to grab some 150 grit paper and just sand inside. sandpaper is not doing it fast enough. I'm gonna grab a file and just start filing this across. Let's give it a test. Much better. Just a little bit here on the end. I'll clean that up and we'll be done. On this old template I did, you can see I have a little line here and it's in permanent marker, and that's where I need to line up the template to the angle or the beginning of the indent. And I figured this out a long time ago, and I'm not going to try to figure it out again. What I am going to do is tell you what the distance is between here and there, so you can draw your own line, do your own 45-degree angle, and then draw that line. So what is that distance? It looks like it's 2 15/16 of an inch. So I'm going to draw a line at 2 15/16 of an inch. I have my ruler set at 2 15/16 of an inch. I'm going to draw one line here on top, and then I'll bring that down. And there you have it. We got our template for doing our angles. Now, this is really long, and I didn't tell you what the overall dimension is, and the overall dimension doesn't really matter. I'm over here at the bandsaw, and I have my template, and I'm just going to cut this piece down here. How big should this template be? Well, it needs to be big enough that your router base will sit on it, and you'll feel comfortable when you're routing with it. Lengthwise, same thing, as long as you're comfortable. So I'm not going to really worry much about the length here. This overall width here is a little bit too much. I'm going to cut it down to 5 inches, it looks like, and give myself 5 inches from the edge over. And that way I'll also have some leverage when I double stick tape this to the piece. I have some leverage to lift this off the piece. I almost made a horrible mistake. On the front apron, I was laying out the depths for the cove bit, and I just screwed up. I set one for, I think it was 2/8 and 3/8, and I wasn't reading my notes properly. So anyways, there's two points we have to set our depths at, and the first one is 1/16 of an inch down, and the second depth is 1/8 of an inch down. So let's go ahead and do that. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bit out and get it so it's at 1/16 of an inch. So I want the very bottom of the bit to come down a 1/16 of an inch from the top. So what I'm going to do is find that, and right here I'm going to lock that in. With that locked in, I'm going to raise this up, and we're going to do two different depths of routing here. The first depth is the 1/16 of an inch, and that's throughout the entire length. The second depth is 1/8 of an inch, and that's just in the little angled section. So one way of doing that is to set a whole nother depth after you cut this, or since we're going to be making so many of these cuts, my other idea for you, or thought for you guys, would be to set a second stop. So that's why I did this first stop. Each one of these stops is 1/8 of an inch. Or I'm sorry, not 1/8, 2/8 of an inch down. And this one's variable, the one with the screw here. So I can undo the nut, move the screw up, and just keep playing with the height of the screw until I find the next depth that I like. And once you find what you like, just take the nut, bring that down, lock it in. Just real quickly, I took the front apron and I set that aside. I didn't feel like cleaning it up. I just grabbed one of the rails. So, but it doesn't matter what piece you do, this black line we drew here, you need to line that up to the beginning of the indent. Okay, we're about to route. I just want to go over this one more time, just in case. First step we're going to do is 1/16 of an inch, and we're going to make a pass for the entire length. The second pass we're going to do is at 1/8 of an inch, and we're going to move the router just a little bit before the indent, and then we're going to come down the indent and then go just a touch in, and that's it. I took the template off and everything looks really good. Nice 1/16 of an inch cut to start with, and then the 1/8 of an inch deep, and the angle part looks great. Now we just gotta take some sandpaper. I got some 150 grit here and some 220 grit and a lot more paper, and just start shaping this. So let's get to it. Okay, so I got the 150 grit paper here, and I'm just gonna start working. Basically what we're looking to do is round everything over, smooth out the transition, and then extend this line back here, this point here, to extend it so it comes to a tip. So right now what I'm doing is rounding over these edges here, trying to push this back a little bit, and then sand into this transition to bring the level down from a 1/16 of an inch into the 1/8 of an inch over there. See, we're starting to build a little bit of an indent here, and we've got to transition these two steps here. And you can see that the wall at the end and the step here are starting to disappear, and that's what we're looking to do. Just move from this point down here and then come out a little bit over here. You know, if you have a little file, you can use that too. That may help you breach those or connect those two levels easier. But the sanding will definitely get you there. That side's looking really good. I'm going to start working on the other side now. I'm going to help myself with this transition. You can do the sanding like I did over here, but I'm going to grab this little tool and see if I can remove some material. It's a nice little file. You may also want to use some gouges too. I have a 1/4 inch gouge here, and I've just been working that a little bit too. So you can sand the whole thing if you want. If you don't have any tools like this, it's going to take you a little bit longer possibly. Otherwise, you can definitely come in and do some of this work with some gouges or other carving tools. Don't forget to round over these edges. Let me show you where I am. I really like this transition here. I like this transition here. I like the transition from here to here. This transition's pretty good on the bottom part, but on the top, we got to round this around. I got a little indent here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's come in with some 220 grit paper and smooth out the inside. Great. Feels good, looks good. Let me show you what it looks like up close. I think it's looking pretty good. There we go. And then we'll have another one on the opposite side over here, and it'll be great. All right. 1 down, 7 to go. It takes a little while, for sure. It's maybe about an hour each, give or take. You may get faster, but somewhere around half hour to an hour each. And it's worth it. Take the time, get it done right. You can do it all with sandpaper. You may want to maybe get some smaller dowels and put paper around that to help you get in here a little bit, get a little bit more pressure against the wood to remove more material at a time. I do have some gouges that I was using. Now the 1/4 inch I used a lot, and then I was also using this file here, and it's rounded and curved up on the ends. And those look good with, I use the smoother side, not the harder, rougher side. And then just a lot of paper. So now you got the template, and you can remove a lot of the waste, creating the initial shape for yourself, and just get sanding. That's what I'm going to do right now. I got 7 more to go. So, see you in a little bit.